Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Your brother Tayyib Yunus here. And in this episode, we're going to talk about nonprofit life cycle stages. When I first got into really being curious about nonprofit organizational performance, one of the first things I stumbled upon was their stages. And when you Google it, and nowadays ask ChatGPT, you get so much stuff on it. One of the authors whose work I really like is by Susan K. Stevens, and she talks about nonprofit life cycle stages. In my own doctorate research, we looked at it, and we also used entrepreneurial value creation theory and the two big stages, which is formulation and, hold on, I drew a blank. You're gonna have to edit this part. Formulation. Okay, we looked at entrepreneurial value creation theory, which has these two big stages, which is formalization stage and the monetization stage. So I kind of want you to see the nonprofit journey in two big buckets, which is you have startup, and startup is messy. Startup happens around a founder, and in the nonprofit world, that happens around what I call founding funders. For example, my dad was one of the founders of ICNA, and it wasn't just him by himself, but he had a group of like-minded individuals who were thinking, hey, here's a problem, how do we solve it? And then when they decided, yes, let's organize this thing into a nonprofit, then they needed funds for resources. And so they went out and talked to their closer friends who couldn't be in the day-to-day volunteer work of it, but wanted to support it financially. And these same founding funders, the founders really invested a lot of time keeping informed and leaning on as the organization started to grow. That's the startup phase, founding funders and founders working together. It's the entrepreneurial state. And the signs and symptoms are, you're working in scarcity, you're reacting to immediate and urgent problems. Passion projects take off. Passion projects where there's passion funding, they last longer than passion ideas with no funding and no resources. People get very excited, but then there's low engagement because of competing priorities and no accountability. So you have this sort of founder's entrepreneurial stage. The next stage, and this blends some of Susan K. Stevens' work and also entrepreneurial value creation theory is you've got to solve for mission. You got to solve for your product and your product value or your service value. That's how you go beyond your founding funders and your founding volunteers and your founders. I mean, those are a bunch of people that are in the same boat and the same idea and the same needs and the same like-mindedness. You get to 20 or 50 people or maybe even 100 people because of families, and you think you got a big organization, but it's still within that startup phase. To move to the next phase, it's about focusing on core program development or core product development. And that's really understanding what is our product or program and who do we want to serve and who do we want to serve really, really well. And so in that stage, you want to get your founding funders to understand this is no longer a volunteer association. This is no longer a passion project. This is about understanding what we need to invest our resources in to create impact. And that's a lot of it's an iterative process in how you shape and fine tune your product, your program, or your service, whether it's solving for food security in Bangladesh or down the street, downtown in some neighborhood, whether it's education, whether it's women's empowerment, whether it's research, whether it's whatever it is, civic engagement. You've got to fine tune and be super clear on your program or your product and who you serve and who your beneficiaries are going to be that you want to really serve well. Organizations sort of get to a point on that. And now it's the next stage, which is mission market fit. Mission market fit is, okay, we know that our own founding funders want to support this project, And they're doing it largely through the connections and relationships of the organization. But how do we find the right complete strangers to the organization who don't know the founders and the founding funders and the founding volunteers, and get them to understand the importance of this mission and want to support it? That's called mission market fit. Mission market fit. In the business world, it's called product market fit. When Apple came out with this phone, they have to find out who is the right customer for the Apple phone. It's not everybody. It's not as simple as Apple versus Samsung. It's not as simple as that. It's about the right product for Apple versus the right product for Samsung phone. Similarly, Toyota versus Honda. It's not as simple as, well, it's a car, it's a four-wheel, it's got an engine in it, it's a sedan. Customers aren't the same. Similarly, in your nonprofit, you want to solve for mission market fit beyond the founders and the founding funder circles. And when you solve for that, how you know you're solving for it is complete strangers to the founders circle are supporting the mission and supporting the work. This is when you know you've got market traction. This is when you know you've got a mission validation. You've validated your mission because people are supporting it beyond the founder. The next stage beyond that is infrastructure. So now that you know you've got a program that's working, you've got capacity to tell that story to complete strangers, how do you take that to scale? How do you put the right systems in place to really grow it? And that's infrastructure development. Infrastructure is as simple as putting in, what I call the right operating model. And the three pillars to the right operating model is PTP: the right people, the right tools, the right processes. Who's going to do the jobs that need to get done? What tools do they need to get the jobs done that need to get done? And what steps are they going to follow so it's rinse and repeat and we can scale this thing up? That's PTP. PTP operating model. Operating model, infrastructure to grow programs, to grow marketing, to grow fundraising, to grow ops, to grow HR, to grow all the systems we need in the business. Look, my dad was a physician. And, what I learned from him in working in his practice and also working in healthcare in my other career is doctors look at systems: the respiratory system, the vascular system, the musculoskeletal system. These are systems, and all those systems make up this human body that needs to go out and do stuff. Your business, your nonprofit is a business of systems. And similarly, you've got to focus on system building all those systems, marketing systems, financial systems, governance systems, program systems, leadership systems, accountability systems. These are all systems that are going to help your organization, your mission scale to impact. And that's in the infrastructure stage. You're making your mission organizational ready to scale. And then at the top of that is now you're ready to achieve greater impact. On the other side of this organizational development work, on this organizational stages, is decline. And that's a whole nother show where we talk about what are the signs and symptoms to look out for when you're talking about now you've reached impact, you've reached sustainability. What are the things you need to watch out for to decline, to prevent decline? And what are the signs and symptoms that tell you that you need to start a renewal process? And so what we've talked about today is the organizational life cycles of a nonprofit. I love Susan K. Stevens' work. I love looking at, the entrepreneurial value creation theory. And in my own doctorate research, if you look it up, we talk about mission market fit in solving for some of that. Thank you so much for being on the show today. More to come on the Muslim Nonprofit Show.